This episode is brought to you by Beneful. Mornings are when the grind starts. Stretches, immaculate. Cardio, crushed it. Territory, marked. Sorry, geraniums. The dog routine is on point, but it can get a little wolf. That's why I fuel up with high-protein Beneful freshly prepared meals. I'm eating clean with real meat and veggies, served fresh from the pantry. Kick boring in the bowl with Beneful freshly prepared meals. Visit Purina.com/Beneful to shop now.
No intros necessary because this is I was just telling them off air that this is the first one we've never done this. And funnily enough, Jenny and I were talking about beforehand that this has actually been in the works for like a year and a half at least, like this specifically. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Jenny. Like we're talking about Blur specifically today. We're because One Record we're returning to Blur, if you will, because One Record's come out since we did our episode on them, The Ballad of Darren, and we're going to be talking about that. But first, let's talk about you and I did that episode at this point almost exactly 10 years ago. Like it would have been somewhere around this time in 2016 that we.
Yeah, I think it was April, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very early in the show. Very early.
Very early. Yeah, so I did listen to the episode again recently, and it struck me how different the show was back then.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in the days when we would still have like our top 10 list.
Yeah.
And then we had quote unquote honorable mentions that were actually just part of the list.
Yes.
Because I think like the original concept was you were supposed to have 10 songs, and then some people couldn't narrow it down to 10, so you'd have 10 honorable mentions along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they all counted. So, and it makes more sense that way. So good job.
For sure.
And so one of the other things about the episode that was kind of odd was that I remember us talking about like the concept of the starter kit of the band,
Mm-hmm.
you know, trying to pick the songs that would introduce someone. And I feel like it was a fairly new concept then too, because like the first few episodes were kind of like there was a lot of greatest hits kind of stuff still being tossed about.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one we actually didn't talk about a lot of the hits. Like I don't think anybody said song 2. Like you may have mentioned it, but I don't think anybody had it on the list.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think so.
So it was really interesting to like go back in the Wayback Machine of the program and listen to that. So one of the things, and I talked about this on the Peter episode, he was really mad at me for not having Park Life, and I don't even think Park Life was mentioned.
Wow.
I think that was the biggest whiff that we made. It really should have been there. He was right. And you know, looking back at the older comments in this chat, we were saying how like Peter would be in on this because this was a fucking 2 years ago we started talking about this episode. So I'm sure he would have wanted Park Life to be there. So again, I think that was something that we really should have included. And let me see. So this was the other thing that really struck me about the older episodes. Like the way we played the last round was so different back then. You would just go down the list and read the song names, and then we'd be like, yes, I want that one. No, I don't want that one. Now it's this whole like wheeling and dealing round where like, well, if I get this one, you get this one, you know, like, you know, you're playing the song. It was so bizarre. It was so bizarre. One of the other things I thought was really funny was you mentioned one of the songs that you called out was Repetition. And I was like, I don't even fucking remember that song. And then like 2 seconds later, I literally said, I don't even remember that song. Because I don't listen to Leisure very often.
Mm.
It's not really like my favorite Blur album. I like it. It's not in my heavy rotation. So like I was like, God, what the fuck is that? Um, I think yeah, I mean I don't know. It was interesting to go back and listen. I looked at the list and I think we did a pretty good job other than Park Life.
Not being there,
Um
right?
uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it really should have been mentioned. Um and like I didn't have London Loves on my list and when I heard that I didn't have that I was like how the fuck did I not have that on my list? Um and I think that that kind of goes to like what I've been saying about how, sometimes like my list will be different on one day to another.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because of like what hits you on in a certain way. And I guess at that time I was just not into that song, but I fucking love it. So I don't know. Maybe I was making the hard decisions back then. I know I played my list different back then. Um, I think mentioned that I had like I don't know if this was the total amount of songs or if I just actually couldn't narrow it down, but I said something about 63 songs
Mm.
and I had to narrow it down from that. That's exactly why I have to play the way I do now because like it's painful to cut
Yeah.
some of my favorite songs. So like, I don't know. Maybe it just didn't hit me the right way at that time. So but the list was I thought the list was pretty good. Let's see, we've got Coffee and TV. Out of Time. Out of Time is still like one of my favorite songs of theirs. The Universal, fantastic. Um, uh, there's some weirdly deep cuts on this list,
Mm.
and I think it's still pretty good. You know, I think we did a pretty good job.
So
You
here's
know
what
what, Justin? You're so great.
You're so great was the thing that we kept coming back to you on that episode. That's one thing I remember
Yeah.
for sure. You're great. I'll say this. This is a band that in hindsight I don't think I was ready for then. I mean, I was receptive, but like if we did this band now, for number one, like the obvious thing is my list approach would be different. Like Park Life would have been on mine for sure because I've heard it and it's not, it doesn't have the stink of well, in I say stink, but like at that point in time, I was specifically staying away from hits. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was especially that early in the show, actively looking to not do the thing. Like I was trying to find deep cuts. I was trying to get into the records. But also at that time, I was turning the Discogs around in a week and like not really having time to absorb it. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel like now, like the bands that I've been through, like with 10 extra years, like now going through this, I feel like now I'm ready for Blur. Like now, I mean, I'm not saying let's
Right.
redo the episode, but I am saying like, I
No.
feel like now is the time for me to get back into Blur. Um,
And also, this was only your second Discovery episode. Up until Devo was the previous one, like a
Right.
couple weeks previous to that.
Yep.
And before that, you actually knew all these bands
Mm-hmm.
already. So Devo was completely new to you, and Blur was completely new. And it was like, eh, I even made a comment on the show, like, Justin, what are you going to do when you run out of bands that you know? Well, here the fuck we are.
Yeah. Literally 10 years later. So I'm going to run down the rest of this 10 and then I'm going to bounce it over to you, Josh, just to like, to speak to, as the person who had to miss out on this. So Jenny already said Coffee and TV, Out of Time, the Universal. We had Tender, To the End, Country House, You're So Great, Stereotypes, Sing, and then Sunday closed out our list. And obviously we didn't have, Final Say or number one at that point. But like, as somebody who came to the podcast as a listener, when you get to the Blur episode, like, are you like wringing your hair out? Like, oh my God, these guys are fools? Or is this more like oh man, I wish I could have been there moment?
I feel like I'm such a Blur nerd that any lists probably wouldn't have satisfied me just because, and like Jenny would know, when you've been such a big fan of a band for like, more than a decade, you have moods where you have like 20 different favorite songs at a certain time. Like we're talking about Park Life then. That was the song that got me into Blur through the Beavis and Butthead videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that song, but like I'll happily not hear it until I see the next live, you know? Even though I love that song just because they're probably my most played band over the years. But I thought the list was quite good. They had a compilation called Midlife when they came back on their first reunion tour around that time. And I feel like this list was kind of like a great compilation in that it had some of some of the hits, but it had some fantastic album tracks or like lesser known sort of singles on it as well. Like even in the songs that you had two agreements on that didn't make the final 10, like Advert, No Distance Left to Run, Lonesome Street, Tracy Jacks. Like there was some really good songs there, and I think a good variety of songs that were being hit. But I will say, I was waiting the whole episode to hear Beetlebum, and Jenny mentioned it at the end. Thank God. But for me, that song's just like, how can this song not make it in? But other than that, I think you guys did such a good job. I will say, Justin, props for mentioning Battle. That's my favorite Blur sort of. I wouldn't say shoegaze, but like really self-indulgent moment with really dense instrumentation and weird lyrics and whatever. Like I was glad you mentioned some songs. I think you mentioned Repetition there as well. It's not my favorite moment of Leisure, but I think it was really cool that you chose such a deep cut like that.
I feel like that's part of the 1 week turnaround is like you kind of have to go with what speaks to you immediately. I mean, it's possible that it would have still made my list regardless if I had another week or even, another day or whatever. But like, I feel like the positive of having only a week is you can't, stress yourself out over the picks that much.
Yeah.
You just kind of 20 kind of gravitate towards you. But the bad part is then you come to the show and don't have as much to say because you've listened to it like all of 3 times and like I liked it is all you can add. So all right, so let's talk about your relationship since the show. Jenny, is your relationship still as strong with Blur? And when this album comes out, is this something like you immediately go to and fall back in love with the band?
I mean, first of all, absolutely nothing could break my love for this band and for Damon Albarn in general. But yeah, so we went back and listened to the Ballad of Darren, and when it came out, I don't think it really grabbed me because it really didn't enter my rotation at all. And I'm not sure why it didn't, because listening to it for this show, I loved it. I don't know what it was. It didn't feel quite as cohesive as some of the other albums. Like it doesn't. It almost felt like they kind of wrote the songs individually sometimes and then just put them together. But it was good, and there was a lot of really fantastic songs on it. So I don't know what my problem was the first time through. But I mean, there was, Spotify does the the best of lists, and almost every single year Blur is in my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was one year in particular that like they said, what was your favorite band for each season, and it was just Blur each season. Spring, summer, winter, fall, fucking 365. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to say. That's it.
So again, as somebody who missed out on the original conversations about Blur, and realizing that this was an album we hadn't covered, is this like the excuse to come talk about Blur, Josh, and talk to me about your relationship with this record?
Yeah, so to put some context behind this, I've been pestering Jenny and Justin to do something for Blur for about 2 years. Because I will say that episode you guys made was the first thing I heard from Deprogrammed. I wanted to listen to more Blur podcasts or anything, and I liked the episode, so that's what brought me back here. But
Oh.
yeah, it genuinely is the excuse to talk about Blur. I did hear Zach saying that episode about Blur B-sides. I'm like, oh, I might be pushing it a bit here, but
Mm.
but yeah, definitely an excuse to talk about Blur, and it's interesting in the context of listening to Blur. I sort of got into them maybe around 2011, and since then um they've had the Magic Whip and the Ballad of Darren, but both have completely felt like surprises because bless him, I love him, but Damon Albarn like never sounds keen to do Blur, but then does it anyway. So
Yeah.
you just never expect it to happen. So each album's been a complete surprise when it's come out, and a very appreciated surprise. But I suppose what I'd say is that their album making process now isn't typical of a working band or a full time band. But I suppose the genius of Blur is even in these short time frames. So like the first album, The Magic Whip, come out because they had a festival cancelled when they were between Japan and Hong Kong.
Mm.
And they just recorded songs over 4 or 5 days in this really dingy studio. And then the Ballad of Darren, they were going to play at Wembley. They got offered gigs at Wembley, and they're like, well, we don't want to be a nostalgia machine. We need to make a new album. And I think they recorded it and have everything ready in a really short amount of time. So this album come from a really compromised time frame, and I think they've done a great job considering. It's not my favorite Blur album by any means, but for Blur in their 50s and not playing together all the time, I thought it was a great effort.
Yeah.
I want to speak
You
to
can definitely tell they're definitely in a different place than they were when they wrote Park Life or 13 or these earlier albums. So
I want to speak to that point though, that it like hammers the point home I was making earlier about when we did this initially. I wasn't ready for Blur, and again, I feel I was receptive. I feel like I got it. I mean, the show wasn't as refined, and I feel like I would have latched on easier now. But what I'm getting at is when I'm listening to this record, while I have the same sentiment, this is probably would not be my favorite Blur record. It did make me want to listen to Blur, which I haven't had, period. End of story, since we've done the show. Again, not that I didn't like them. I just had no desire to go back to them, and there's nothing negative there other than me not being willing to make the space. Listening to
be
this,
fair, Justin, you've had to listen to about 15 million songs since, so it's a small price to pay for Deprogrammed.
Yeah. But like listening to this record, I'm like, kind of to your point, because we're doing this similarly to something that's probably going to come out in at best a couple weeks, perhaps a couple months. We're doing this the same time as the same idea with Gorillaz, and it's like at the time when we did the Blur episode, like even though there's a clear difference between the two, I don't think in my brain 10 years ago I made a difference between the two. Like it's clear, but it's clearer now to me. Like, and I feel like Gorillaz in 2016 spoke more to me, and Blur speaks more to me in 2026.
interesting.
And so like, I mean, I'm interested to go back with them, but I mean, we're not here to talk about that. But like, I am interested now to kind of go back and take in those records for enjoyment and not just content. So,
not because you have to, because you
right,
want to.
right, and see if it lights a fire under me to propel them to, because I get the feeling, again, is it going to project them to a top 10 band for me? I don't know, man. Maybe, possibly. But like, they are going to be a band that's going to be on my mind, I feel, after I actually listen to them. If I listen to them now, whereas they were just another band that we covered on the show up until we did this. So with that in mind, we really are like already right up against it. So like, I just want to like close this out with, instead of we had talked about doing a list. Anybody listening to this, if you want lists on these, let me know. Like, but on this first one, we're not doing lists because I feel like this conversation's been beautiful. I don't want to muddy it up with arguments about songs, although I don't think that'll happen. Just out of curiosity, like, what are your high points on this record, Jenny? Like, you can just say the 4 songs you picked if that's what you want. But if they're not that, then feel free.
I've got Avalon. It was really chill and floaty. It had a lot of dynamics that were really fun. It was very Beatle-y to me, which is always going to win me over, St. Charles Square. I think I'm picking hits off of this album, but I don't care. St. Charles Square, The Narcissist, and it's hard to read my handwriting, but it looks like it says goodbye.
Goodbye, Albert.
Goodbye, Albert. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Josh, again, like, we're not trying to match here, but like, would you have been advancing any of those songs? Which 4 did you bring?
St. Charles Square, definitely. That it was nice to hear that sort of energy in a current Blur song. The Narcissist, yes, it was the lead single, but it was beautiful. I didn't have Avalon, but I do love the sort of horns they have in that song, which is a cool Blur choice I probably haven't heard since The Great Escape. And I did like Goodbye Albert, but that wasn't in my 4. Because apparently he wrote this song about this bird he was like sitting with at the beach that died. It was really sad.
Whoa.
Typical depressing Damon story. Yeah, but it was... I have to find where he said that because it was kind of beautiful. The way I'm describing it sounds really dark. Yeah. The 2 songs I had that Jenny didn't have were the ballad, which is actually a song that's more than 20 years old that Damon's bodyguard kept telling him to record, of all things.
Hilarious.
And Russian Strings,
Motherfucker.
which I think just has the most beautiful chord progression. But yeah, those are my 4.
I did like those. Yeah.
Hilarious that I dropped the ballad before we went on today. So even in a moment where I wasn't sure if we were going to make the list, I was like, let me listen to this record one last time before we go on. And this is why I told you guys I think I might be ready for Blur now, because I listened to it like pretty much uninterrupted. And when I had done it before, it was kind of like 3 songs here, 2 songs here, 4 songs here, however it played out. I got to listen to it all the way through, and I was like, man, I really like this. And like, as I was listening to it, I dropped the ballad off for Barbaric, because I got to Barbaric. I was like, oh man, this is really pretty. And neither of you had that. And then
it was, yeah, I wrote notes on it, so that I liked it. It just didn't make the top 4.
Right. And then my song that was the 5th song, that I had up until, a couple days ago, whenever we said, hey, let's do it, Thursday night or Friday night or whatever, was Russian Strings. So I dropped that off. But the other 2 I had were The Narcissist and St. Charles Square. And the thought that that really, or the song that really hammered home the point of, I think Blur might be for me now, was Avalon. When I was listening to Avalon just before we went on, I was like, holy shit, I loved this. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it's great. And, obviously not enough to make me make changes, but that doesn't really matter. I also had The Rabbi. I forgot that was my 4th song. But
oh yes,
yeah,
You know what's funny, Justin? Your original 4 are exactly what I picked. Great minds and all
So
that.
I'm clearly wrong here. I'm picking the songs about dead birds.
Yeah,
I really like
that was my
Albert.
first choice. But in respect, is it being respectful leaving it out because of the dead bird, or
don't know.
disrespectful? I don't know. That's something to ponder.
Yeah.
Disrespectful to me because I liked it.
But
I'll say my B-side was called The Swan, and that's a bird.
yeah.
And that was my favorite B-side, so practically an ally for the birds.
There we go.
Okay, I'll take it.
All this to say that the Ballad of Darren is a really good Blur record, and if you've never gotten into Blur, while it's probably not going to be the best Blur record, and it's not going to be your favorite Blur record, it clearly did something for me listening to it today, and I'm really considering going back to Blur again. I actually might have some time in the coming weeks, actually. Like, I don't know why I'm acting like I won't. I actually might, which is cool. So,
They're not out of time.
yeah, right. So, the Ballad of Darren, give that a listen, and we will see you all tomorrow.